Okay, hopefully you can follow the lecture on public sector accounting. Now we move to the next area, financial accounting and reporting. All right, financial accounting in public sector. So take note, I think when we discuss this topic, we'll look at differences, and then of course overall discussions on financial reporting and accounting in public sector. I think we will spend like 1 hour time because I think afternoon want to. So hopefully that will still be able to keep alert during this 1 hour. Okay, I try to make it as easy as it sounds. I think definitely the topic in terms of the title is very common, isn't it? I think we move from management accounting, then this financial accounting part for public sector organizations. Okay, we'll discuss on objective of financial accounting reporting. We look at users, and then basis of accounting. And I will also discuss on fund accounting, basis of accounting, part of it, fund accounting, and that will be a bit detailed. Okay, and then with IFSAS and MPSAS, we look at accounting standards for financial reporting. Okay, so of course, I mean by the title, it looks similar. But then because of the unique features of public sector or government organizations and government agencies, I think at this point you can tell the major differences, in terms of source of funding. Okay, at this point, what do you understand about source of funding of government organizations? How that is very different than private sector? Anyone? Anyone? The main difference between the funding of public sector profit-making organizations? Any major difference? Or too late to ask you questions? Class? Is it too late to ask you questions? Anyone would like to share? Oh, very quiet. Oh. All right. Okay. Since I think the main difference is. Okay. Hello. Can you hear me?
We are thinking, sir.
Oh, okay.
Very tough question, sir.
Oh, okay. Very tough question in the afternoon. Right. The main difference is, of course, government agencies are highly dependent on allocations, budget allocations by the parliament, right? And that's the main source of funding. Whereas in private sector, they can get from shares, issuing of shares. They can get loans, they can issue bonds. They can get syndicated loans from the banks. Okay. These options are not there for the. From that perspective, you can see the differences. You can expect that there is differences in reporting. That's one. The other is the activities, right? I think okay. let's say I give you one question. I think when we discuss on budgetary control, what was the main common responsibility center under in government? Anyone remember? Main type of responsibility centers under for government organizations. Anyone?
Cost center, sir.
Correct. Cost center. So from that point or from that angle, you can expect the type of financial reporting, right? Financial reporting for that agency. Okay. So revenue, maybe the type of revenue will be different. Okay. Instead of sales, they will have income from allocations of funds, and also the expenses. You can expect that. And then since they are cost center, you don't expect them to show surplus, okay, or major surpluses, right? So I mean, you can tell the differences, even if maybe in the balance sheet items. So in the balance sheet item, you want I mean, to the, I mean, when we discuss at this point, for balance sheet items, let's say in the liability, for government agency, yeah, I'm not talking about government as a whole. For government agency, if they provide financial statements, so would you expect them to report liability? I mean, like long-term liability? Yes or no? Maybe yes, maybe no. All right, you can argue. Okay, you can argue. But I think least likely you can see items like sukuk or bonds for government at the agency level. Okay. Whereas maybe because of we discussed about PFI, so maybe there are liabilities like leasing type of liability. There's a possibility. Okay, so you can expect these differences in reporting in terms of financial statement items or captions. So these are the discussion that we're going to discuss. Okay, so I will continue again. Just for a start. So it's heavy rain in Gombak. Is that heavy rain in your hometown?
Yes, sir.
No, no rain, eh? Okay, so these are, I think, the importance of financial reporting. Possibly you already come across this verse from Surah Al-Baqarah, the verse 282 on written, put in writing. Okay, when there is a contractual obligations, performance transactions involving future obligations or performance obligations in the future, so must be put into writing. So I think this one way to justify, okay, reporting financial reports. Okay, why financial reporting in public sector is important? Okay, first, to establish an appropriate accounting system for the purpose of accounting public resources. Okay, I think it move even why accounting system is needed. Okay, once you have accounting system, so with that they will be able to prepare financial reports. Okay, to execute the functions of custodianship and stewardship over public resources. Okay, I think part of accounting. Can you hear that? So say Subhanallah. No. All right. To execute the functions of custodianship and stewardship of public resources. At the end, the civil servants. Okay, who's our good friend for this class? What is his name? What is his position? What is position? Our good friend in this class. Anyone still remember? Our good friend. He will be accountable to a public account committee. Who's that person? Tough time, huh? No, Still remember controlling officers?
Yes, sir.
You still? Okay, good. If you say yes, right. So the controlling officers, right, and also their subordinates, representative. Okay, at the end they have to be accountable. And to discharge public accountability over all kind of public resources. Okay, so one of the important channel is through financial reporting. Okay. Financial reporting objective in public sector based on IPSAS conception framework. Okay, I'm not sure. Maybe you can check also the updated because from time to time IPSAS in IPSB. Okay, so I think this is another platform. I think still under International Accounting Board, isn't it? They have this IPSAS board. International Public Sector Accounting Standard Board. Okay, so for private sector, they have this what do you call it? International Accounting Standard Board, isn't it? ASB. Okay, so similarly, okay, when for private sector they issue IFRS. So for the public sector, they issue this IPSAS, IPSAS. So get used to it because for the next 2-3 weeks, at least 2 weeks, we'll discuss a bit more on these standards. Of course, we take Malaysia as a case, right? For international students, still pretty much applicable to you because this standard also is applied across the globe. Okay, to provide information about the entity that is useful to users for accountability purposes and for decision-making purposes. Okay, so I think this is quite similar to conception framework under ASB, yeah, or under IFRS. So not only the two pillars there for accountability in one hand, and then for decision-making. So for accountability is for reporting, and then for decision-making, for the users, either internal or external users. Within the group also, I think they use IFRS, or maybe in this case, of course, within the group or within the ministries, okay, they should use these standards. Even if you look at multinational companies, okay, within the group companies, okay, they use IFRS, even for internal reporting between parent and subsidiary. So because that's the best benchmark. So similarly, in the case of government, I think we should be within the government agencies, they should use these accounting standards. But to achieve accountability, on one hand, and decision making. I think decision making normally we talk about relevant, usefulness, okay, for information. So all these, what are the characteristics of accounting information that can meet decision making criteria? To discharge accountability obligations, provisions of information about resources entrusted for service deliveries, service delivery achievement during the reporting period, and its capacity to continue to provide future services. Okay, not only for reporting or for accountability, okay, basically referring to achievement, but from the financial information, it can also provide the idea, okay, their level of activities in the future. Okay, for future activities. I think that's very similar when we talk about entity, even in private sector. Okay, I think one of the main principle is going concern. Okay, so the financial information provide that somehow that insights that organizations can still continue to operate. Okay, at least within the next year. Okay, about going concern issue. So similarly, in the case of public sector, right? This one is by the National Council of Governmental Accounting, to based on US. So okay, demonstrating accountability and stewardship, decision making, economic, political, and social purpose. Okay, the dimensions of the information. Okay, the information that is useful for decision making, not only economic, political, and social purpose. Okay, because we are talking about public sector organizations, right? They have to look at this socio-economic development, and also political dimensions. Evaluating manager and organizational performance, right? So enough information so that to be able to assess. Not only, I think we also teach you that, of course, in one hand, account information should be able to be used to assess the performance of the managers. Another end is to assess the performance of the organizations. Okay, it can be a lot of overlapping, but there are differences. Right, accountability and decision making, assessing the compliance of governmental agency with legal and other statutory requirements regarding how resources are obtained and spent. Okay, we call it public accountability. So you can see that, okay, compliance to government agencies with legal and other statutory requirements. Okay, so what being mandated, okay, not only by shareholders but here by Parliament. Okay, and then some of the government agencies, they are basically supporting a certain specific acts, law or regulations. Okay, for instance, like Bank Negara, for instance, the central bank. Of course, central bank is enforcing the Banking Industry Acts, okay, and other related financial institutions. Look at ICC, for instance, Securities Commission. Okay, so there are Securities Investment Acts and others. What are the relevant information statutes? Okay, they are basically managing those acts in terms of enforcement and implementation. Okay, so when they are being entrusted with the resources, those basically these are the areas that they can be examined, how their performance, how well they use public resources to achieve their mandates. Ensuring relevant authorities in government are making rational decisions about allocation, distribution, and utilizations of resources for various sectors of the economy. Okay, so these are for decision making. Okay, the word rational decisions. Okay, but these are rational means cost of benefit. I think that's what normally, if you see this, the word rational decision making means the benefits should be more than the cost to justify the decision or the cost of action, right? With accounting information, this will enable financial reporting. This will enable the users to exercise this rational decision making. And I think it's quite fair, because if you look at, I think they need both, right? Budget as well as financial reports to justify, because the budget is the allocation, whereas financial report is basically demonstrating the actual expenditure. And not only that, and then what are the relevant items that is related in terms of assets, liabilities, use of resources. So quite comprehensive if they use accrual accounting. While of course with budgeting, with cash accounting that we discussed, definitely there are limitations to provide this assessment. But in any case, so that's why, I mean, the financial reporting, okay, to financial reports to achieve should support to achieve all these framework, financial reporting framework. So in this case, if there are enough relevant information provided, then the members of Parliament, okay, can, because at the end it's the allocations of resources proposed by the Prime Minister, by the Cabinet, by the Executive, and then approved by the Parliament, okay, before it's being endorsed by the King. So, but for them to be able to tell, so which sectors require priorities, priority areas for the future development of the country, okay, based on their policies and others, so that definitely financial reporting has its roles. Assessing the capability and capacity of government organizations to provide high quality product and services, and its ability to continue to serve the public. Okay, so capability and capacity of government. Okay, definitely this financial report provide very strong, because being audited, so very a good source of reliable information, okay, to tell the capability of the organizations, because at the end all the resources in terms of people, okay, in terms of their machineries throughout the country, okay, all this can be translated into okay, assets as well as level of expenditures that can be presented in the financial statements. Okay, so I think this can couple with the non-financial information, because at the end, how to tell high quality products, because you have a certain level of assets, it shows that you have the resources. But at the end, of course, the quality of that need to be supported with non-financial information. Okay, for performance evaluation, serving as a useful tool to monitor performance of government organizations in terms of efficiency, effectiveness in using of public resources. Okay, that will be under performance evaluation. Providing government an opportunity to put forward statement of its achievement to influential users and public. Okay, statement of achievement. These are the kind, I think, examples of what performance information that they can provide to the users, and how that should be used. Okay, definitely consideration, efficiency and effective considerations are paramount, but the issue is how to be able to assess. Of course, we discussed internally, but now I think the users, the external users, how they can assess this through financial reports, that they can assess the efficiency and effectiveness of government organizations. Okay, so now we move on to some concepts and features of financial accounting and reporting for public sectors. Okay, the first one about reporting entity. Okay, reporting entity. Okay, reporting entity, or we call it accounting entity, isn't it? Accounting entity, right? Generally, accounting entity, here is reporting entity. Okay, for private sector, okay, we talk about company and subsidiaries for financial reporting. Of course, for now, I think they also discuss about business segments. Business segments need to be reported as well. Okay, but between parent and subsidiaries, okay, of course, at the end will be consolidated financial statements. In the case of government, okay, the reporting entity, of course, the process of consolidation is there as well, but they call it funds, fund as accounting entity. Okay, a separate fund. So each fund become an accounting entity. So here, accounting entity means, so as you understand accounting entity, are you still with me, Kaf?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Hello? Okay, I just have to check from time to time because I don't want to just talk alone. Okay, I can check that as well. All right. So separate accounting entity. I think in accounting in private sector also they discuss on separate accounting entity, mostly on the financial reporting. For business, separate accounting entity to ensure that the business should prepare the financial statements, and these are the affairs, or the financial affairs of the owner and the business should be separated, right? Okay, that will be your starting point to understand, right? So when we talk about separate separate accounting entity, so it means that the accounting entity will provide financial statements. Okay, so when you prepare financial statement based on accounting entity. Okay, so with that understanding, we can apply this in public sector. So the public sector, the accounting entity is the fund. Okay, the fund can be within government agencies, or the fund is overall of the government. Okay, both there are funds. Okay, I think if you are aware, recently there was a case when during the COVID, I think there was a current issue where I think last week there was a bit a noise in the media when government they want to use there was a specific fund, national fund if I'm not mistaken. Okay, national fund, okay, to be used or to finance vaccine purchase, right? But then there was a conflict, not conflict, but I think the opposition also raised the issue that this fund shouldn't be purchased except for the development of I think infrastructure or development for petroleum industry, something, okay? Because it is a specific purpose. Okay, so as an example, I think you can check. Are you aware of that class? No, very busy. Okay, you
Yes,
can
sir.
check. There was yeah, I think the fund is Kumpulan Wang Negara, if I'm not mistaken, or National Fund. You can check because there is a fund, specific fund was created for specific purpose. Right. My point is this fund is for our discussion is period. Okay, so instead of accounting period, we call it the reporting period or the accounting period is fiscal year. Okay, so fiscal year means the year end must be class. The year end must be for the government report must be
December.
December 31st December. Okay, so the reporting period must be ended 31st December. So if you find a accounting report of a financial statement of the government agency, the year end should be December 31st. Okay, so one of the reason, of course, for budgetary, for parliamentary control, because budget is for 1 year and budget also follow fiscal year, then the financial report also follow fiscal year. Okay, because budget prepared allocated based on fiscal year, then the reporting also follow the fiscal year, right? Unlike the for non-profit, non-government, okay, where their accounting period can end in April, in June, in July, okay, depending on their decision. Okay, that on reporting period. Make sure you pick up all this. Very straightforward, but very different. Okay. Sometimes I think this very basic but very important. So this basic, I think you should remember. Okay, something you shouldn't miss because you study PSA. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right. Because government also provide opportunity for employment. And audit. In terms of audit, in terms of accounting, okay, because they have national audit department, they have national auditor, accountants general department, all these higher accountants. Okay, of course you can work in other, okay, you can become diplomatic officers and others that they take everybody, but they also take accountants as position. Okay, so I think you should be remember all these PSA. Yeah. I just advised one student. Well, of course, he's our alumni, but he's also my neighbor. Okay, we always meet in my musala, in my surau. So he was telling me this week he's going to be interviewed by AG, yeah, or Accountants General. And he was asking me for advice. I said, "Did you take PSA?" And of course, you have to study all those, to study the role of AG, and then make sure that you also keep yourself updated with episas. Okay, who knows that they may ask you all these questions. So so I think that's why remembering this possibly can learn you. Who knows, but I think they take a lot. I think our alumni as well. Okay, to work for AG, Accountants General. Okay. Right, that's reporting period. Basis of accounting. Right, generally in private sector, we just focus on full accrual, okay, accrual accounting, right? But in the government, okay, we have cash basis, we have modified cash basis, modified accrual, and full accrual, okay? So there's reason for that. I think for cash basis, simply because of budget is allocated based on cash basis. So the accounting, the reporting for the budget is also under cash basis. And then modified cash basis, we'll discuss that. That's also applicable in the case of Malaysian government. And then modified accrual, full accrual. Okay. So not only full accrual, but there are modified accrual. I think we'll discuss the items later. Right, and then if you look at this, accounting cost, asset and liabilities, financial accounting for the public sector under cash basis, no disclosure of assets and liabilities on the balance sheets. So these are also quite different under the cash basis. Okay, under the cash basis, non-disclosure of asset and liabilities on the balance sheets. Okay, or statement of financial performance, financial position. Okay, statement of financial positions under cash basis. On equity under cash basis, I think even accrual, okay, fund balance. So if they don't have equity or they don't have common shares or preferred shares, debentures, okay. But for equity, you will expect they will show fund balances. Okay. Did you ever see this in a financial statement in the private sector, fund balance? Accumulated fund balance. Okay, so you expect to see this in the government financial statements. Okay, fund balance. Right, financial statements under cash basis, statement of receipt and expenditures, statement of financial performance. I think we discussed that later. Okay, so that's just a brief overview on the features of the financial statements. Okay, now we move to users of the financial reports. Okay, one is taxpayers and also the voters. Okay, taxpayers and the voters. I think generally, I think you can tell, okay, the extent of government expenditures. I think, but generally the most popular on when popular item of, from the financial report and for the government as a whole will be the level of liability. Yeah? Because sometimes the opposition use that as part of their grilling the government, the level of liability. Okay. Another investors or grantors. Okay, investors, of course, I mean the investment communities. They really look at government actions, okay, government policies, and I think stability of the country also, okay, can be seen through their financial position, right? Because there are cases where government, like last time in Europe, there are cases where government become insolvent. Okay, right. Before that, I never thought that government can go bankrupt. Can government go bankrupt? Government go bankrupt. It means that their liabilities are more than their assets. Okay, but based on the crisis and others, these are. I mean, it's not possible, but I mean the risk is there. So investors, I think they look at stability, okay, political stability, okay, economic stability, and of course, beside economic opportunities. Grantors is, I think, another way to look at it is donors, international donors, because many countries they receive donors from international bodies or from other countries, okay, from developed countries, sometimes providing donations to the government, to the developing countries. Okay, sometimes because the country is, let's say, under the just recently recovering from war, conflict and war. Okay, for instance, like high possibility they receive international donation. Okay, like Afghanistan. Okay, like you know, in the Middle East. Okay, Syria, Yemen. Okay, these are countries. Okay, maybe, you know, Somalia. There are other countries. Okay, I mean, it's quite common. Or not only that, I mean, certain developing countries also there is the government receive donations. So the donor institutions, okay, like the World Bank, for instance, okay, they provide support for infrastructure in the country. Okay, so they look at, definitely financial report of the government is important. Okay, sometimes they request or they require that government should follow accrual accounting. Okay, so because really they need quality accounting reports for them to support their financial, to continue their financial supports. Fee-paying service recipients, okay, vendors, suppliers, legislative bodies, the parliament, management, and oversight bodies. I think from time to time we mention these bodies as part of our discussions. Right, now we move on to fund accounting. Fund accounting in public sector. So as I mentioned that fund itself can be an accounting entity. So we discuss fund accounting. Okay, fund accounting recognizes each class of fund as a unique characteristics and objective. Okay, each fund, okay, we just look at the box there, okay, maybe from the left. Each fund is an accounting entity. Separate financial statements are prepared for each fund. Okay. Second, each fund produces separate financial statements. Okay, there are unrestricted fund, which can be spent for any charitable purposes of a charity. As an example, unrestricted fund means, okay, so the use of funds can be, you know, a bit more flexible. In terms of, it depends. Let's say, for instance, I think fund accounting can be used for trust accounting, accounting for trust. Okay, Under trust, sometimes it can be unrestricted, it can be restricted, depending on the terms, the trust deeds. Okay. So I think definitely in government also trust is one of accounts, and the trust fund accounting will be very useful. Okay, to support trust. Another is restricted fund, which can only be lawfully used for a specific charitable purposes. These are just because we discuss fund accounting as an accounting techniques. So the prescription is very general. Okay. In other words, restricted fund, it can be used only for specific purpose based on the terms of the fund, why it was created. Then it must only be used, the source of fund, and to use for the fund for the sake to achieve the objective of the fund. Okay, so take from here about these two terms, unrestricted and restricted fund. Okay, because it's if you look at the funding, the allocations, okay, by the government, it's kind of a restricted fund, okay, very specific for certain agency. And then we also discussed about two types of budget. There is the operating budget and there is development budget. Okay, so from that there are also kind of restrictions in the use of fund. You can expect that budget for operating cannot be used for development, and budget for development shouldn't be used for operating. Okay, operational activities. So take note of that because the nature of the reporting can require that this should be respected, so that then it can achieve the accountability. The person in charge, okay, should then for them to discharge their accountability, so they must respect this the nature of the fund. Is it restricted or unrestricted? Okay, so take note of that. I think this topic also somehow maybe you discuss this in Islamic accounting or maybe in other specific funds, like zakat for instance, zakat, wakaf, and baitul mal. These are restricted funds. Baitul mal a bit flexible, okay, but zakat and wakaf is a restricted fund, restricted in nature. Okay, so it must be used only for specific purpose. So who can support this? Who can basically honor this objective? It's people like you, accountants, because you know the accounting, and then with that accounting knowledge and skills, you'll be able to make sure that the accounting system, accounting entities, those who in charge of the accounting operation, they should respect and follow and comply with these procedures. If there are, and then to support the trust committee, or the trust, the committee, the one who have that authority to make decisions to use the money, the fund. Okay, so to help them so that they can exercise their duties to make sure that the fund should be used to achieve the objective of the fund, and then so that it requires, because sometimes I think we discuss later on where organizations, they have multiple source of funds, okay, restricted and unrestricted. So to make sure that this fund shouldn't be commingled, or if it is, if they have, because there are not so many choices that they have. For instance, like our university, of course we use fund accounting, but our bank account is only one, okay, for the whole university. So one bank accounts. So how you manage the multiple funds with one bank accounts, for instance, as an example. So the accounting operation must be detailed enough to make sure that they can respect or achieve this proper accounting, so that they can achieve the objective of the fund. In other words, they can prepare the financial statements properly. Okay, there are segregations. Okay, the accounting or transactions related to the fund can be properly accounted. Right, characteristics of fund accounting. Okay, as I mentioned, this one is following the standards, and I think these are based on what do you call it? Financial reporting standard in the UK. Okay, statement of SOP. I think that these are the standard. Okay, there are two types of fund: unrestricted funds and restricted funds. So we just go through what do you call it? The details. Unrestricted funds are spent at the discretion of trustees. It can be used to supplement expenditure made from restricted fund and to be set aside to be used for future commitments. Okay, right. These are for unrestricted. So you can see clearly the use is at discretion of trustee, a trustee committee. Okay, trustee committee is very powerful because the decision to use the fund is based on the trustee. Not the, even if you look at the organization, they may have multiple funds, and then each fund they have a trust committee, okay, or the trustees. So the decision to use the fund is based on the trustees, not the top management, okay. Okay, not because the top manager not necessarily become members of this trust committee, or other members. It can be politicians, can be member of parliaments, but the trustees, these are the authority to make decision for the use of the fund. Okay, but of course, I mean later on we have to be flexible in our discussion because when we apply that for the government, government as a whole. Because at the end, the source of funding is from the parliament. But one is in the form of trust. Then I'm just discussing that for if it is there is trustees that's managing the trust. Okay, right. Of course, the opposite of unrestricted fund will be restricted funds. So you can see that the nature of the fund is one is unrestricted. The other is restricted. Okay, for restricted can only be lawful use for specific purposes, restricted by specific law, okay, or the trustees. Okay, the trustees. That's why I think if you, I just mentioned one case that happened last week where there was, that questioning the government decisions to use the fund. I think National Fund, if I'm not mistaken, the name. So people can question. So how they can question? Because they question based on the trustees. Okay, the terms of reference that why certain fund is being set up. Okay, so they can compare against that. If the funding is different, the purpose is different than what is being prescribed, then of course they can question. But of course, I think the advantage that the argument given by the government is now is we are under emergency law. So the government have more flexibilities. Okay, I think that's up to the government to decide. Restricted fund can be categorized into two types: restricted income fund or endowment funds. Okay, so there are two types. Restricted income funds are to be spent or applied within reasonable period from their receipt for specific purpose of funds. Okay, I think restricted income at the end they will be ended because all the money being used. Okay, they receive the income, they use the income. Okay. I think that's what it is. Restricted income funds. So they receive the income, let's say 100,000, or let's say in the year they receive 30-40 million. So all of the money will be used for the purpose that is decided by the trust committee or by the whatever decision is being made, who have that authority. That restricted income fund. The other is endowment funds, are to be held indefinitely. Okay, income generated from the fund is to be sent for their purpose. So opposite of the restricted income fund is endowment fund, where the capital is being kept, is maintained. But the only thing that they can use for operation is the income. I think if you remember one example of endowment fund, of course within the university also, we have endowment fund. I think we have endowment fund unit. That's one. The other is, I think for the government, the one that is visible is for this, what do you call it? INCF. INCF. Are you familiar with INCF? INCF. Huh? You can Google INCF. INCF. This Islamic banking. INCF. Educational in Islamic finance. Of Islamic finance. Okay. INCF. These are basically under the central bank. Okay, but what happened in CF was the government allocated 500 million ringgit as an endowment fund. Okay, so this allocation is provided as an endowment fund to set up INCF. So INCF as a fund, okay, of course it's an operation as a center of excellence for Islamic finance. I think the office is in Petaling Jaya. I think so many of our lecturers last time also moved there, transferred there, okay, or been hired by INCF. I think they offer master's, PhD, and professional certificates for Islamic finance. But what I'm trying to highlight is it is an example of endowment fund created by the government because of specific purpose to promote the excellence in Islamic finance. And so basically to fund the operation, they must use the income. Okay, they cannot touch the 500 million. So that's why they must appoint good fund manager so that they can generate enough income. Not only that, now we understand about the volatility of the market. Okay, and then with crisis, so they really have to develop ample reserve to be able to survive. Okay, and to control the cost as good as possible to make sure that the fund, because once it's endowment, it will be in existence in perpetuity. Okay, endowment funds generally should exist in perpetuity. Okay, forever. Okay, until the day of Qiyamah. Until the last day. So that's endowment funds. So how they but the use is the use of income. Okay, so kind of restricted funds. Okay, so the government cannot use the money for anything, for take the money and use for others. Okay, it must be only used for the specific purpose. I think funds in Malay we call it kumpulan wang. Kumpulan wang also we can also call tabung. Tabung. Okay, like tabung haji, pilgrimage fund. Okay, tabung haji. So tabung haji should use fund accounting. Okay, tabung haji should use fund accounting. And for tabung haji, for pilgrimage fund, is it unrestricted fund or restricted fund? Anyone? For tabung haji, is it a restricted fund or unrestricted fund?
Restricted.
Anyone? Okay, restricted fund. Okay, so you must, you as an accountant, you can look at their term of reference, or maybe now is their memorandum of association or others to look at their term. Okay, they must respect that term. The use of the money. Okay, who should be the beneficiaries? Okay, normally endowment there must be beneficiaries. So then who should be the beneficiaries? So any decision made by the government or by the board should be to treat for the best interest of the beneficiaries. Okay, so generally that should be the case. So that's so the accounting for the fund accounting should help the managers, the top management, for them to be able to observe all these principles. Right, reporting in maintaining the accounting records, entities must separately identify each restricted fund and the income received and expenditures made from each restricted funds. Okay, so in other words, in organizations or in government, there are multiple funds. So each fund must set a set of financial statements should be prepared for each fund. Okay, so I want you, remember this. If you work, I mean, in one way or another, even if you work as an auditor, work for the government, work in possibly in private sector, but they must have somehow set up funds. So you should use this fund accounting to support, the organizations. Okay, it's very important so that they can achieve. So the money can be properly used, right, and should be channeled because you have to monitor the activities. Should be all in line within the objective of the fund. Right, and then if you can see that transfer between funds, a separate caption in financial statement is used to show transfer between funds. Okay, what does that mean? Separate caption, class, in financial statement, separate caption. What does that mean? Anyone? Okay, a separate item, a separate item in the face of financial statement. Okay, so not only the accounting behind, okay, the accounting operation, accounting entries, even the reporting, there should be a separate item showing transfer between funds. Okay, the total transfer recorded between classes of fund in the reporting period must always at gross figure. Okay, if there is a contra, somehow, if you use consolidation, once you consolidate, you can cancel out, isn't it? But here, the requirement of the standard under IFRS 102 SOP that it must be reported at gross. Okay. Any question? Okay, now we move on to fund accounting in public sector. Okay, features of public sector accounting funds. Resources of government entity are not fungible and cannot be treated as one mass. Okay, so not easily transferable. I think as I discussed, okay, the budget for operation should be for operation. Okay, can be easily transferred for the use of development. Okay, and if they've been channeled for specific purpose, it should be treated as it is. Okay, because the resources are limited and they're not fungible. Fungible here means not easily transferable. Specific restrictions are made on how money paid to the government entity can be spent. Multiple funds may also exist in one public sector organizations. Okay, application of fund accounting. Public sector as a government entity does not have a pool of resources that can be used indiscriminately. Fund accounting enables public sector organizations to prepare separate financial statements for different funds, maintained as each fund has its own specific purpose. Okay, in the Malaysian government, okay, we have Federal Consolidated Fund for revenue, trust, and loan accounts. Okay, I think we'll see that discussion. Okay, reporting of funds at agency level, examples of fund accounting. Oh, okay, I think we have it here, right? Report, yeah, example of fund accounting next class, I said. Are you with me, class? Yeah. Next class, we'll discuss, I think I upload already the example. Okay, we'll go through the example in terms of accounting entries, accounts, and I mean, very simple, but I think quite useful for you to appreciate fund accounting. Okay, reporting on funds in IIUM, I think based on the annual reports. Okay, you can see that as an example. I just look at the equity side. So financed by operating fund, development fund, endowment, housing loan. I think pretty much they follow the structure as prescribed by the government, except endowment fund, of course, as an additional. Then on top of that, there is a loan fund. But loan, there are different categories. Housing, vehicle, computer, these are basically for the staff. This one is which year? 2009. Okay, I think we can share to, I'm not sure. Maybe you can request for your, can you request an annual report from the finance department. Right, so you can see that you will not be able to see this in profit-making organizations. For government, you can see that. Right, but the presentation here at the consolidated. So if you look at the current liabilities and asset consolidated level, okay. So by right, for each fund they must have own separate financial statements, okay, to be accounted for. I mean, at least if it is not financial statements, by right, I mean at least for managerial use, that's one, and for the use of the trust committee, okay, they should have that financial statement. So I want you, I mean, you are aware of this. So if you work in any organizations later on, if there are this kind of specific funds, restricted funds particularly, unrestricted is quite okay because it's open. But if there are restricted funds, you have the duty to prepare the financial statements. Okay, why? Because that is the one of the best way to support the trust members. Okay, so what happened with the money they received and how it was invested, what are the returns? So we must provide comprehensive information. I mean, that will justify your qualification with the Bachelor of Accounting or Accounting Professional qualification. I think for failing of doing that, okay, it's quite difficult. It's quite difficult because you must honor your knowledge. Right. Okay. Now we move on to basics of accounting. I think how many slides still? Okay, we still have many slides. Now only 19. Okay, I think I will finish this basics of accounting before we move on. Right, basics of accounting. Maybe another 10 minutes. 5 to 10 minutes. Are you with me? Are you still with me, class?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I know it's very tough, but hopefully you can listen. Okay, basics of accounting, very different. Okay, normally in public sector and private, in profit making we have accrual, In government, we have cash as a basis of accounting, modified cash, modified accrual, and accrual. So, but yeah, I think as an example, recognition. Recognition of transactions. All right. Okay, now the example is sales. Of course, I mean, we just exercise the standards, the basic standards. Of course, nowadays even to recognize the invoice as sales, so you have to meet the criteria of the 5 criteria on the, what do you call it, revenue from customers. Okay, but of course we are not discussing that. At least when to recognize, given that. Okay, so just to basically to be able to tell the differences. Okay, under accrual, under cash, and under there is another more, under one more we have commitment accounting. Right. So in this case, let's say, okay, for commitment accounting. Okay, commitment accounting. So then another basis, there are recording. They call it commitment accounting. I think one way or another, commitment accounting, why it become a basis, and it is something that we discuss, because and it is recognition of transactions. You know what does it mean, recognition of transactions, class? Recognition of transactions, what does that mean? To recognize a transaction, what does that mean? Quickly, quick review, quick reminder, so that everybody understand, sharing the same language. Recognition of transactions, to recognize, what does that mean? Quickly, in financial reports or in accounting records. Class, or anyone? Wow. Aziz, Abdul Aziz.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, what do you mean recognition of transactions?
For me, recognition of transaction will be part of the financial reporting, because to make them important elements of revenue and all that. So this is a
No, what
part of
does
it.
it mean? What does that mean, brother?
Sir, I guess it's related to the revenue recognition thing, and
Yes. So to recognize mean what?
it means that you put this transaction into the system, the accounting system you have.
Okay, yes. So I just want a quick recall. I know you understand that, just to confirm. All right, so in to record the transactions into the accounting system, okay, as rightly pointed out by Aziz, but for commitment accounting, they only recognize at the issuance of purchase order. So they put that in the accounting system. Actually, for budgetary purposes, and even if they use budgetary accounting, last time we used vote accounting. I think we did mention on budgetary control, government used vote accounting. Basically, they also use commitment accounting within that system. Okay, but here this also can be applied for the what do you call it? Financial reporting. Okay, financial accounting system. Okay, so when the issuance of purchase order, then they can issue, basically book the transaction. I think one of the reason why they use in government they use commitment accounting, basically because of budgetary control. They want to make sure that they don't overspend. Okay, that's why they put in the system so that they can basically monitor. So at the point of purchase order. Another accrual, okay, you understand accrual, when to recognize, and then cash basis. Of course, transaction only will be entered into or be recognized or booked in the accounting book when the cash is received or when the cash is paid. Okay, so interestingly, all are basically relevant to government. Okay, depending on the stages of the development. Okay, traditionally, of course, cash in terms of reporting, they have cash as well as commitment. But now they are moving towards accrual. Okay, so now I think hopefully, by right, they should only release the annual reports based on accrual accounting reports. Later on, maybe we can check the latest annual reports by the government if it is under accrual. Okay, cash accounting, accounting technique that recognize transactions based on the cash or cash equivalent. Okay, the measurement focus on financial statement is balancing of balances of cash and its changes for the period. Okay, that's cash accounting. And then with that, recognize only cash inflow and outflow. Purchases are only recognized when cash is paid. Balance sheet item limited to cash, no assets or liabilities. That is basically there are asset and also cash, then also the equity item is on limited to cash item. Sales are only recognized when cash is received. Final account reporting, cash based transactions. Okay, and then disclosure, of course, with the financial statement, there are disclosures. Statement of cash receipt and payments. Okay, I think you can expect that based on as if like cash books, cash receipt and cash payments, and then the accounting policies. Okay, provide the detailed amount. On top of that, they also require additional information. I think these standards is also provided by IFSAS, right? In the cash accounting environment. So what will be the disclosure like? So you can see that under the disclosure, receivables, payables, borrowing, all liabilities, commitment and contingent liabilities. Okay, these are for financial. So in other words, they support accrual, but of course, in the financial statement will be cash item, but will be supported with additional disclosures for all the accruals items. And on top of that, they also require the disclosure on performance indicators, the KPIs on achievement of service delivery objective. Okay, so take note of this, the additional disclosures under the cash environment, cash accounting environment. All right, another is external items, major classes of cash flow, okay, analysis of total cash payment, related party disclosures, comparison with budget, and consolidated financial statements. Right, another basis is modified cash accounting, accounting technique that recognize transactions and other event when cash is received or paid, similar. But I think what make is modified is the second point there. Okay, the books are held open for about a specified period after the year end. Okay, I think if you look at modified cash accounting, is also basically this procedure of keep the book open. They allow these transactions after year end to be included within the year. Okay, the reason, of course, still for budgetary control, for parliamentary control, to make sure that all the budget being utilized and reported for the accounting period or for the fiscal period. Okay, that's why they use this. So basically in Malaysia, we use this to support the parliamentary control. In the Malaysian context, under Financial Procedure Circular Number 1, government accounting policies stipulate the use of MCA, the use of modified cash accounting. Right? I think these are basically the explanation. Of course, the cost incurred, but the payment is made after the year end, the reporting as if the payment is made before the year end. Okay, so that's basically the idea. Of course, in the accrual accounting, you book the payments and you report the payments. If it is done after the year end, definitely it will belong to the subsequent year. Okay, but in the case of government, of course, the payment is made after the subsequent year. But in terms of reporting, it becomes the item where the transaction, the cost is incurred. Okay, these are the implications. I think basically the same as I mentioned just now. So the reporting include transactions taken place after the year end within the extended period, not for the whole year, but only within the extended period, which is basically 1 month. If you look at this, cash flow at the beginning of the reporting period, which have already been accounted for in the previous reporting period, are deducted from the current period. Payment during the extended period are charged to the prior year budget. Okay, but during the grace period for the extended period. Okay, so be careful of that. This is another example of this how the accounting is being to make sure that it be accounted. Of course, the payment after the year end should be accounted in the year where the cost is incurred. Okay, cash accounting evaluation. I can read this. I I think the focus will be to facilitate parliamentary control. Okay. Problems: provide no information about asset and liabilities. Of course, these are basically, they are not provided on the face of the financial statement, but you can see that the standard encourage them as a part of disclosure. Okay, little use to management other than cash control may undermine efficiency drive because of once they separate that, it may total cost information may undermine that kind of information. Okay, modified accrual. Okay, now we move on to modified accrual. I think because of the time, I stop here. Okay, we have another set. I think what we'll do is, any questions? Very quiet. It's take full opportunities for this Ramadan. Take doa with your ibadah. If you don't study, keep yourself busy with ibadah and take good rest. And may Allah give you the full blessings of the month of Ramadan. And looking forward for your have a nice day, inshallah. Nice iftar. So with that, I end this with wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.